Hi guys, morning all, I hope you're well. So we've been working on genes and I'm just going to talk you through your work for this week to do with genes. So I say some work last week on bite size, hopefully you've gone and done that and it's kind of making sense. It's around the idea of inheritance, which means you get your characteristics, your features from your mum and your dad. And how does that happen? Because of what's in the nucleus of cells. And you've got your DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's on chromosomes, what makes up the chromosomes, and the genes give a code for your characteristics, blue eyes, brown hair, whatever it is. We're going to learn a bit more about that today. Okay, so I'm going to go to PowerPoint for today, and we're going to look at your work, and I'm going to be asking you to pause the video as we go through and for you to do bits and pieces and then do the quiz that this is attached to. So please watch this video properly and maybe a couple of times before doing the quiz. Okay, so first up, let's do some questions looking back to last lesson. Number one there, how many pairs of chromosomes do human body cells have? If you watched the BBC stuff and listened before, you'll have picked that up. How many chromosomes do sperm and egg cells have? What structure does DNA form? What are the bases of DNA and who discovered DNA? You might find 4 and 5 quite difficult. So if you could pause the video and give yourself a bit of time to think of the answers to that, and then we'll come back to that and go through the answers. Okay, pause the video. Okay, so hopefully you've unpaused the video. So how many pairs of chromosomes do humans' body cells have? They have 23 pairs, 23 lots of 2. You get one chromosome we get 23 chromosomes from mum, 23 from your dad. They come together when the sperm meets the egg to make 23 pairs. So normal body cells have 23 pairs. How many chromosomes do egg and sperm cells have? They have half the number. Okay, if they're half the number, you get half your chromosomes from your mum, half from your dad, and then when they join together to make a fertilized egg, that fertilized egg has then got the full number, and that divides, and that carries on producing cells with the full number. What structure does DNA form? It forms a double helix. Do you remember I said it's like a ladder? Picture a ladder and then twist it. That's the double helix. Right, the bases of DNA, we're going to come back to that another time. The answer is A, T, C and G. You won't understand that at this point. And who discovered DNA? If you were watching previously, you might have noticed it was 2 scientists called Watson and Crick. Okay, now today's title is What Makes Us Human? How does variation happen? Think back, variation was a key word from before. Variation means differences. Okay, so if you look in the class, you know, we're all different to each other. There's no identical twins, and that difference is we call variation. You're going to be able to describe the difference between dominant and recessive alleles. You don't know what that means at the moment. You're going to be use a Punnett square to show how genes are inherited. None of that makes any sense at the moment, and explain why offspring are not identical to their parents. That will all come to make sense as we go through the lesson. If I'm going too fast, hit that pause button. Okay, right. So there's the answers to your quiz that I talked through. So variation, how does it happen? Look in the pictures. You can see in each picture there's an example of a characteristic. You've got the top left hand corner, you've got 2 women with different colour hair. You've got a picture of 2 different colours eyes. This guy's there's got freckles. Not everyone has freckles. You've got a white horse and a brown horse, 2 different colour Labradors. You've got someone who's short and tall. They're all examples of variations, differences. How does this happen? Why are we so different to each other? You know, similar but different. How does that happen? Now, first thing to understand, okay, when you look at your mum and dad, you will notice things about both of them that you recognise in yourself, and then some things that you don't recognise in yourself at all. Okay, and it's because of these ideas we have characteristics, features that can be dominant or recessive. You can kind of think of dominant as meaning strong and recessive as meaning weak. It doesn't mean strong and weak. It just means one, it will overwhelm the other one. Okay, now what does that mean? We represent genes using letters. Okay, so you might have an example might be the gene for blue eyes is a capital B. The gene for brown eyes is a little b. Now, they're both genes for eye colour, the letter B. I've made up B. They're both genes for eye colour. One's a capital B, that means it's dominant. One's a lowercase b, that means it's recessive. Oh, here we go. I didn't realise that was on there. So B, capital B is brown eyes. I might have said it the other way around. Little b is blue eyes. The capital B is the dominant one. What that means is if you get a gene from your mum or dad with the capital B, the dominant gene, okay, you will have brown eyes. Okay, even if the other gene is the little b, because the brown eye gene is dominant or stronger, and that is the one that will form your characteristic. Okay, I'm going to ask you a little extension question now. So what's the only way you can have blue eyes? Just pause the video and think about that. What's the only way you can have blue eyes? Okay, and the only way you can have blue eyes is if both of your genes, one from your mum and one from your dad, are both little b's, because you know, as soon as a capital B is there, you have brown eyes. Okay, if you've got two little b genes, then you'd have blue eyes. Okay, so the capital letter is dominant, the lowercase letter is recessive. It kind of means strong and weak. If the dominant gene is there, that is the characteristic you will have, in this case brown eyes. If it's not there, if it's two lowercase ones, then you'll have the recessive characteristic. We're going to do quite a bit of this. That's this lesson in a nutshell there. So why don't we look identical to our parents? So different forms of the same gene are called alleles. For example, there is an allele for brown hair and there's an allele for blonde hair. It's the same gene. It's the gene that decides what colour your hair is, but there's two different versions, one for brown, one for blonde. In reality, there's more than that, but we're trying to keep it simple. So the gene for hair colour has got two different types, brown and blonde, and we call them alleles. So the gene that's shown is the dominant gene. Okay, the example of the dominant gene is freckles. If you've got the gene for freckles, even if you've only got it from one of your parents and not the other, you will have freckles. It's dominant. Okay, so as soon as you've got it, you're going to have freckles. The only way not to have freckles is not to have that freckles gene. If the dominant gene is there, it will always be shown. Okay, the gene to have no freckles is recessive. So the girl in the picture, she hasn't got the freckles gene from either parent, so she's got no freckles. If she had the freckles gene just even from one parent, you know, half a gene with the freckles, she would have freckles because the freckles gene is dominant. Okay, recessive genes, they only get shown, expressed means shown, if you've got two of them. Okay, right, let's have a little look at this. You've got two, you could argue parents. Which one is the dominant gene, the one for dark hair or the one for blonde hair? You can't possibly know, but let's have a look. Dark hair. So if you've got a gene for dark hair from your mum or your dad, you will have dark hair. The only way to have blonde hair is if your parents both have blonde hair. It's in reality, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but this is just trying to teach you the basic ideas. Look at this. We've got straight hair and we've got curly hair. Okay, which of those characteristics is dominant? You don't know. Let's have a look. It's curly hair. So if you've got the gene for curly hair, it's dominant. Even if you only get it from one parent, the person will have curly hair. Eye colour, you could be brown or blue. And this is a big oversimplification because there's lots of different eye colours, but we're just trying to explain a simple idea or quite a complicated idea. So which one is dominant? It's brown eyes. If you've got a brown eye gene, the brown eye gene is dominant. And it doesn't matter if you've got a blue eye gene, you'll have brown eyes because the brown eye is the strong gene, it's the dominant gene. Strong doesn't mean better, it just means it's the dominant one, it's the one that will be shown. Okay, here we go, freckles. I've told you the answer to this. You know, freckles, if you've got the freckles gene is dominant. So if you get a gene for freckles, even if only one of the two genes, one from your mum, one from your dad, even if only one of them is for freckles, you will have freckles. It's as simple as that, it's dominant. Okay, so remember, you get a gene for each characteristic, one from your mum and one from your dad. The genes can be dominant, they can be recessive. The dominant gene is the one that's shown. And you might have a freckles gene from both your mum and your dad. You definitely have freckles. But if you have a freckles gene from either of your mum and your dad, it doesn't matter if the no freckles gene is there, you will have freckles because the freckles one is dominant. So let's have a look. Is it possible to have a blue eye baby from two brown eye parents? So remember, the brown eye was dominant. So you'd have thought if your mum and dad have got brown eyes, you would have brown eyes, but not necessarily. Okay, not necessarily. Let's have a look at some exceptions. Look, parents there, presumably, and there's a baby. They've both got brown eyes. The baby's got blue eyes. And I know you'll have been thinking this as we've been going through. Well, my mum and dad are this and this, and I'm something else. How can that be? Well, it's because of this. Right, this is where I'm going to try and annotate a little bit. Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say you've got one parent who's got blue eyes, but they've got blue eyes for one gene and brown eyes for the other. Look, the capital B is blue eyes, the small b is brown eyes. So they've got dominant capital B, so they're going to have brown eyes. That could be dad, say. This down the side is mum. They're the same, look. They've got brown eyes. You've got the dominant brown eye gene there, but the other one is the blue eye gene. So let's just imagine we cross the parents' genes, mum's genes and dad's genes to make the baby's genes. Let's have a little look. Right, so if this one there and that one there come together, we have BB. So that the sperm there with that gene and an egg there with that gene come together, you've got two capital B genes. That baby will have brown eyes because you've got the dominant brown eye gene. In fact, you've got two of them. You know, there's no question it's going to have brown eyes. Right, let's do this one. That one and that one come together. We're going to have B, B. Okay, look, this gene has got, this baby has got the brown eye gene, the capital B, and the blue eye gene, the little b. The brown eye gene is dominant. That baby will have brown eyes because it's got the dominant gene. Let's have a look at this one. We'd have, I'll put the capital first because that's what we do. Capital and little. Can you see I've got the capital, that one and that one. So this baby here will have brown eyes. Look, it's got the dominant gene. It's going to have brown eyes. What about this one here? Look, little b from mummy, little b from daddy. Oh look, you've got two blue eye genes. There's no brown eye gene there. That baby would have blue eyes, even though both parents have got the brown eye gene, brown eye. That baby would have blue eyes because it's got no brown eye gene, because both parents also had a blue eye gene. And when they come together, you get a baby with blue eyes. Look, there's that one there. Okay, so look, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 different combinations that you could have there. Okay, so one of those 4 is blue-eyed, so you'd have a 25% probability of having blue eyes. 1 in 4, a quarter, you could say, couldn't you? A quarter is 25%. Okay, does that make sense? So this is the dominant brown eye gene. The baby will have brown eyes if they've got that capital B. This baby, number 4 down in the corner, hasn't got the brown eye gene. It's got 2 blue eye genes, so it's going to have blue eyes, even though both parents have brown eyes. Okay, and that's why you're not exactly, not all of your characteristics are the same as one or the other of your parents, because they have recessive genes, the lowercase genes, that they don't show themselves unless they're there together, unless there's 2 of them. Okay, complicated stuff, but don't worry, we're going to do some more examples. Here you go, I'll give you another one. How is this possible? These guys are sisters. Okay, so you've got skin colour, different skin colours. How can two sisters have different skin colour? Oh, whoopsie, sorry, let's turn the pen off. Okay, right, let's have a little look at this clip. I'm going to turn that off, let's hope this works. So just watch this video for a second.